Hi everyone! It's so rare we got all the faculty here today, and I'm really excited. Today, we're here to just really speak about, I think, just the idea of reflection. How do we each individually do our own self-reflection? How do we take care of our mental health? How do we grow our self-awareness? And because each of us have very different ways, so we all thought that it would be great we can get everyone together, then we share, and then all of you watching this video will have suddenly a lot of ideas and a lot of methods, either to round off your year or to start new years. You never really know, right? There's no right or wrong time for reflection. So I'm really excited to slowly get everyone, invite each of the faculty member here that some of you might be already very familiar with. And oh, but remember to introduce yourselves because we might have some new viewers. So make sure everyone knows who you are. I think Lynn, why don't you just kick us off and let's get this discussion going. I'm really excited.
So I'm excited to be here, and I think it's great that we're talking about reflection because work is so important to us, right? Here at TCI, when we talk about developing as a coach, there's only so far that your skills can get you as a coach, but what will continue that journey to mastery is the inner work, like working on yourself and reflecting on who you are, what's the best form of expressing your values and your talents, and at the same time, the kind of biases or perceptions that you bring into your work with people, which is sometimes very hidden. So we do need that space to reflect. So I'll kick off. I tend to reflect. Okay, other than the ongoing daily reflection, I do tend to reflect at least monthly, once or twice. And what I would straight away, first thing I look at would be the two things, like two sides of the same coin. So I'll look at like the painful moments, moments that were challenging or that were disappointing or shocking for me. And then on the other end, moments that were joyful, happy, surprising. And I like to look at these extremes because it kind of tells me how I stretched as a person. And to me, I really believe in experiencing things, right? When we experience things, we find out more about who we are. Plus, I tend to be a little bit more of an extremist than a mundane person. So, I need to see those moments to feel like I'm alive. So from there, I will unpack okay, the painful moments, where was I challenged? Where were my limitations, or what limitations were acting up? How did I behave as a result? So in some instances, like I might have lost my temper, and I would really sit down and look at the damage of that, and how I might have hurt myself or other people, and learn from that. I feel that sometimes we don't put ourselves through the fire enough. It's very normal for human beings to because they're so busy, right? Like when we face something that we don't quite like about ourselves, it's just a very touch and go. But beneath that, when you get through the fire, you actually see the beauty of something, whether it's a value. Maybe I got angry, but after going through that, I realized where I'm coming from. And most of the time for me, it's because I'm really passionate about something. That's why I'll feel for something, right? If not, it won't bother me. So it's using those to find different facets of myself. And likewise, the very joyous moments or the moments which I really enjoyed, why? What is it that in me that came alive? So it's a lot of reflection on who I am and knowing all these parts of myself. Yeah.
That sounds really amazing. I was so curious, right? When you do this thing, is it like, do you feel like it's difficult, or like how much work does it feel like, or is it very natural for you?
I think it's a muscle that can be built. So of course, in the beginning,
Okay.
it's difficult, right? Because on one hand, you don't want to look at the painful stuff.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, maybe we tend to normalize things a lot. Like, oh, it's normal that I should feel good with my friends. And then again, it gets parked there. It doesn't get further massaged. So it is a muscle that did take time to build up, but it helps me because I'm a visual person. I like to use like my iPad. I use GoodNotes, which I love. And I use it to draw. I use it to, whatever comes out, sometimes I pull a card, like I use, oh my God, it landed on my fire. Use like my divinity cards, and I just use pictures to kind of bring things out within myself. So that's the how that I do.
That's really exciting. Because I just a quick insert. I'm a very visual person too, but I'm actually kind of seeing how I interpret my need for visualness quite differently. So I'll share later with everybody, but then, yeah, thank you so much for that. That was
Jada wanted to say something. She raised her hand.
Yeah, I was wondering, can I intercept? No, so Lynn, I've got a question for you, okay? Because I know of clients, people that I with coach, right, who sometimes might just find it really, really difficult to look at positive, because you spoke about two sides of the coin, right? Some people might find it really difficult to look at the positive side, and some people might find it really difficult to look at the negative side. Or some might just really enjoy indulging in the negativity, and for others really enjoying the positive that they don't want to look at the other side, right? So do you have any tips or techniques that can allow them to, like, as you said, sit in that fire, or to like be able to switch and change their lens to look at, the other side of it?
Wow. Okay, then this is where we get a bit philosophical. Okay, now we're talking about a second layer of awareness. So your first layer of awareness is when you sit down and let's say you journal or you talk to a friend. So you're aware of the content that's coming out. But then there's also that second layer of awareness when you step back and you look at what you journal. And that will also show something about yourself that you can learn. So if after a while you look at all your journal entries, or you reflect back on all your conversation with your friends and realize, oh, everything I say is just so negative all the time. These things suddenly hit you one day and you go, oh, that's another part of myself that I never noticed before. So it's still being aware of how you do things. Yeah.
I was going to jump in just now about Jada, when you said that, right, are you talking about yourself? No, because I experienced that myself. If I look back, right, at the end of the year, even though it's very shitty, right, but I'll think that it's good. So I only remember the good stuff. Yeah. And it would take me a lot of effort to dig out and recall actually what didn't work. So for me, I have to note whenever bad stuff happens, I have to note it down into pen and paper in a record, so that when I reflect back, I can remember it for what it was. What about you?
You're total opposite, Eugene. I only remember the bad stuff. It takes effort for me to remember the good stuff and to maybe appreciate my efforts or appreciate other people sometimes.
I think you all should buddy up, man.
Then it'll be a complete picture all the time, right? We just give each other that feedback.
I think maybe I can share what I do then, because my way of kind of reflecting or consolidating for the year is actually more focused on the positive side, because I'm very cognizant that people tend to focus more on what they didn't do well. There's a tendency for us in our society to be harsh on ourselves and critique ourselves whenever things don't go well, right? So when it comes to year reflection, I tend to veer more towards the positive side, just so that we can have a good end to the year. So what I do is I'll tend to light up a candle and like create the ambience and the space to reflect, because lighting a candle does help to engage your subconscious in addition to your conscious, right? Yes, very nice candles all around, Jada and Din.
I think when you light a candle, you are anchoring that space, right? To say, now I am going to do this.
Yeah. So you're kind of carving out that space for yourself, your conscious, your subconscious, to really engage in this exercise, right? And then I will go through this thing that is a bit of like completion for year end. So you do a stock take, you find a way to integrate what you've learned, and then you create for the new year. So sounds very familiar, right? So how I do it is I know I don't type very fast on the tablet, so I will just tend to think through what I want to journal down, and then I'll say it out, and then it just gets captured on the note itself, which is very convenient. There will be 3 questions that I will be focusing on. One will be, what have I learned? How have I grown this year? As well as what can I appreciate myself for? Right? We're always so stuck in the doing, and then we forget about having to spend time on ourselves to appreciate ourselves, so that it helps us to integrate and kind of continue to stack on what we've already grown and learned. Right? So that's the integration journey. And moving forward for next year, it will be then, what are my aspirations in the new year out of what I've seen myself grown this year. So a lot more on the positive side of things, so that we can all end the year on a good note.
On a good note.
Yes.
That's the app that I use.
Ah, okay.
But I want
Are you advertising for them?
no,
This is not a
sponsored,
sponsored video.
unfortunately. But I want to write off what you said about consolidating, because it's important to energetically stack, right? Like if you don't consolidate and you don't extract the energy from your experiences, it will just sort of flow out. So you kind of lose the energy of it. Whereas the smart way to do it is to, when you consolidate and you build on that, okay, what can I learn from this from a practical point of view? Or what would I do differently? That's some of the coaching questions we always use, right? You are transmuting the energy.
Oh, it reminds me, like, if you have gained a certain number of experience points over the year, right? And you don't lock it in, right? It will just seep away and you don't get it to the next year.
You buy weapons with the credit. Oh, let's not talk about
Spend your
game.
credits for the year to level up.
Or level up your gear and personal equipment, right?
And then can we trade with one another? Let me trade.
That's what we're
That'll be
having this
fun.
month.
There's different ways of locking in, because just now as Pei Ying is saying about how she journal, right? And that's her way of locking it in. I realized that we can reinforce the locking by having deliberate conversations with friends. Let's say, for example, I know Pei Ying would go around and hang out and catch up with friends, right? And then she will also share her learnings. And that's another way to reinforce that.
So to repeat again what you have learned, and then it comes back in again and get feedback.
Because then people also build their perspective of it, right? So you see like different dimensions.
Oh.
Okay, so let me share my turn, right? I don't know if I can show you guys a draw.
Yeah, we
way
can see it. Yeah.
of capturing.
Oh,
You disappear along the drawing. Yeah, okay, nice.
There we go.
I've been doing oil painting for this year, and this is something that I did. And I want to speak about dreaming. Okay, so if you guys notice, right, like the patches of grass, there's so many different colors. There's like purple, there's orange, there's green, there's like yellow, blue. And in reality, right, we all know that grass is green. But then as I was painting, right, my art teacher taught, like, kind of like showed me that there's a lot of different colors you can put into a painting. And then as I start putting like purple and orange into like the colors, I went like, oh, you mean it can be like that and yet look so good? And so I guess my point here is, how do we all tap into our own dreaming that is not seen and felt in reality yet? Yeah, so that's how I've been using dreaming and as a way to tap into imagination and into creation of possibilities and the future. That's my way of reflection.
But how do you do that? It's so hard to.
It's very
let
abstract,
go.
right?
I use painting as a way for me to have that moment to sit down and then use colors to just put down and, hey, let's start with this green color first. And I think what works is I don't tell myself that it's wrong or that, okay, this doesn't work. I just pick up another color and go blue. And then I'll put the color down and then start seeing all these different things forming together. So it's a deliberate attempt in my mind to say, try it, experiment. Don't stop yourself.
You know what comes to mind?
Yeah.
Like I suddenly had this thought that for some people who maybe have certain perspectives about themselves, like they feel that they're very stagnant or they feel that they're very fixed in their way of thinking or doing, it sounds like a very deliberate thing they can actively try to do. That's actually not so difficult to just try to stretch this other part of themselves that maybe they don't engage that often. Just try, just be willing, like don't be scared. Like all these phrases are coming into my mind when I think about individuals who sometimes feel maybe a bit trapped, or they feel like I'm not creative, I don't know how to dream, I only got this life, so yeah, that just comes to mind. So if any of you resonate, you can try this pick up a color and just go method.
I pick out a card that talks about this. This woman is trapped in her own circle. And by doing that, she can walk out of the circle beyond that small confined area.
Ooh.
It's the tarot card called the wheel.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay. So since Jada has introduced a new dimension of self-exploration, right? Like going into the arts, into the less known, and so noticing my eyes are closing and feeling more into myself. So there's a little bit of starting from a more external process, like journaling, expressing things out of yourself, placing it into an external form, and then tapping more into the less known. So what I would love to share is maybe not a particular technique, but more like a mindset that I've been embracing in the more recent years, right? So as you guys know, I went for my training in process-oriented psychology. So it has a very huge affinity with the Chinese concept of Tao, the Tao Te Ching, right? So the whole thing about Tao is the worldview that everything is in flux, everything is in changing. Right, so there's a flow, right? So there's even a story to illustrate this flow, and to illustrate how the human mind, right? We tend to the mind loves to think in dichotomy: good, bad, yes, no, up, down, left, right, and that is actually gives us the language to talk about the world, right? So the story is this old man, he has a bunch of horses. One ran away, and the neighbor said, "Wow, such bad luck." Right, and the next thing you knew, one day this horse came back with a bunch of wild horses, right? So from one, the guy has now many horses, and the neighbor say, "Wow, good news." Right, and then another day, his son rode the horse, fell down, broke his leg, and the neighbor said, "Wow, bad news again. Now your son is an invalid." And then the war came, and because the son is an invalid, he can't go to war. The son is safe, right? And then it's like a good news. Right, so this is like how, you know, a quick snapshot of how the human mind goes up and down the roller coaster. And this was like a very useful reminder when I found out that I had a serious illness a couple of years back, and this gave me the wisdom to see how I was about to go onto the emotional roller coaster because of the bad news. Right, I was trying to grab onto every piece of good news, and then the bad news came again, and that was the start. So thankfully, I caught myself in time, and I was able to go through the process, right? The whole physical healing process, the medical system with a lot of zen.
Well,
So
it sounds like you don't attach a particular perspective to things that happen to you.
Right, it's about the mind not trying to grab onto something so fast, and it's just like, it's also an awareness practice of like noticing how our minds, how our thinking process is trying to grab and grab and grab, right, and make interpretations every time. We are always like so eager to get somewhere. There's like a practical intention, practical purpose, practical goal, and you know sometimes you really need to let go of the pedal and allow your mind, your space, whatever your experience, to just wander.
And it's okay. It's okay
It's okay
to not have a definitive answer.
Not trying to go somewhere, not to achieve something, and that's really where I got some really interesting moments for myself. Right, I'm not someone who exercises. Okay.
Hide your arms, hide your arms.
Right, but surprisingly, I actually get a lot of unexpected insights. I kind of like internally, right, that some I just tap into something when I go for my long walks, and my mind just wander all over the place. Right, so I don't have the expectation that I know I have to reflect and then get my answer as soon as possible on the spot. I mean, if it happens, that's fine, but sometimes things can just you can't just rush something, right? It will have a natural flow of sequence which the ego mind, the construct mind, can't comprehend yet.
It sounds really liberating, you know. Wow.
Yeah. So maybe the other thing that I can share as an added perspective, right, is our thinking mind, you know, is just a very sophisticated computer made of flesh and blood, water, instead of metal and silicone, right?
Yeah.
That's just meant to compute things. Right, so if you want to assess something beyond, deeper into this whole back of what makes us human, right, is to be able to put that aside. Right, and not overthink too much, right? And then that's when the other pieces of the doors to access something else starts to open.
I think the opposite of me, like you can go so deep in, right? For me, it's like I have this hard disk that auto wipes itself every 1 month. The self-forgetting. So it's really hard to consolidate, because to me, to even put time to that, right, I would say I'm busy. Yeah, so I found a simple, like, not hack lah, but what I do is that every time I have a intense emotion, I'll put it down into my Google Sheet. Like, it's a daily thing lah. So I just put out a simple like keyword or so. And if I have a win or I feel something good has happened, I'll put it down. Because otherwise, right, if I reflect back every quarter or every month or year, right, it will be zero. I can't reflect anything. It will be like, oh, okay, Lord, it went well, Yeah. And then I realized that, oh my goodness, at least for the past 1 year, right, the things that I felt bad about, right, were recurring things, with the same people. Then I say, oh, I haven't done anything about it for the past 1 year. So it's a good reminder, because I'll put it in as a to-do for the next year. So that's a very simple way of just, if you're not in the habit of self-reflection, to kickstart that habit. Yeah, but I think also at the same time, what I'm aware of is the questions that I ask myself have changed over the year. Now I ask it from an area of how can I grow? Okay, because over the past 1 year, I've been like doing a bit of work in Enneagram. So I have identified myself as someone who is self-forgetting, who merges with people's visions, thoughts, and dreams. So I can't really tell what's mine or what's others. Yeah, and then I have this note saying that, okay, for the year, right, how do I go beyond that? That means I'm able to differentiate and distinguish between what thoughts belong to me and what thoughts belong to others. Yeah, it's being assertive, but it's choosing to say that, okay, this belongs to me, this part of it, and I have to make it known. Yeah, and I map it all all the events to, oh, did I stretch beyond this default? Did I fall back into this default? Yeah, and it's quite a painful process, and that's why I think that it's very important to find friends or find people to reinforce that feedback. Otherwise, I will just sleep on it and then, oh, okay, good Excel sheet, very nicely done. Let's move on.
Speaking of tech, Eugene, for my reflection method, I also use a bit of tech. So okay, I'll talk about the how first. So the how is basically, because we've been zooming so much because of whatever is happening around the world, right? I decided to open a Zoom session on my own, and then I just record myself talking through my thoughts into the camera. Maybe it's some subconscious dream of wanting to become a content creator one day, but let's park that first. Specifically, the question I always ask myself is, is there anything I haven't said that I want to say? And I pose this question to all the different parts of me in my head, right? Because when we go through life, we experience different things. And then we kind of have self-talk in our head, from should I eat chicken rice versus duck rice to did I do well today or did I do poorly today? How do I feel about the things that I did well? How do I feel about things that I didn't do well? So for me, because I'm a visual person, right, I thought that maybe if I see myself saying these real things about how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, then I can get a different perspective, or I can see something else about myself. Because prior to just either maybe someone telling you feedback or telling you what they observe about yourself, sometimes you don't always have that luxury. So I thought I'll take it upon myself. Okay, do the thing that's most confronting, which is to one, see myself on camera, and at the same time, because I'm in a safe space and this video is for nobody but purely myself, right? Maybe some close friends, but intention is for myself. Just say everything that's on my mind. Really empty out all the thoughts, like it's a bit like reclaim a calm space in your mind, right? Some people do it through meditation. For me, I like to talk. So I just need to talk it all out. And once the video is up, what I do is I upload it to YouTube, and it's a private list, and then it becomes a journal and it's dated. And when I'm feeling, maybe I kind of give myself maybe 1 or 2 weeks or maybe even a month, I'll go and rewatch. And then just like hear myself again, and then the new questions come in, you know. Are there new things I haven't said? Are there new things that I'm learning? So it's very confronting, but it can be fun if you want to try. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
want to
kind of my
ask you.
input.
I want to ask you whether you watch the videos again, and how
Yes.
do you feel? Like, what happens for you when you watch yourself?
Because I tend to lean towards the negative, right? I'm like, oh my god, why are you like that? That's normally the reaction. But then right after that, it's like, okay, so that's how I was back at this date. So it's data, so I remember, right? So I won't suffer from forgetting. But I think the main feeling is just maybe a bit of apprehension, but at the same time also there's a bit of pride. Like I managed to do it, you know. So it does serve a purpose. It really it gives me a reality check. Like this is your life, and this is what you said about it. And it helps me have a different point to reference the present, right? How I was then versus how I am now. And then I'll just do the next video that captures the now, and then that can carry on. Yeah.
I like how Xing Jian calls it the captain's log whenever he posts that up.
She's one of the people I share it to. She gets some access. Yeah, as extra entertainment.
So what does that mean for you when you call it the captain's log?
Oh, it's a nerd thing. You know how you watch sci-fi shows or those like the space captain driving the spaceship, captain's log, data what, you know, the Enterprise is moving into where. Yeah, there's no real meaning. But also because maybe back in my officer days, people do call me captain. So just as like a little remembrance kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow, I love how something as simple as reflection can go so many ways, and it really shows
Truly.
how everybody is very different. Like, you know, the diversity reflects everybody's truths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe to end off today's video, if there was something that each of you wanted to communicate to whoever is watching around this topic of reflection, or just maybe personal growth or health, mental health, right? What would you say? You know, maybe we can go around the room, like share a wisdom piece, like a soundbite that you think that can resonate. Yeah.
It's about learning to be comfortable with yourself.
I like that.
Okay, mine's not a soundbite, but it was a new thought. Okay, which is that experiences, no matter good or bad, right, all serve to help me rack up the experience to level up. So it is important for me to acknowledge all of that and lock it in for a new year.
I would say reflection is more like a self-care regime. It's about taking time out for yourself, so that you have the opportunity to grow.
I think mine would go along the lines of like, be free, just try. Just try.
And I will write off that because mine is a reminder that all of you are beautiful, very deep, very powerful human beings. And we don't get to see that because we're too busy with our lives. But if you sit down and really look at yourself, there's so much depth to who you are beyond what you know. And to allow yourself to go into that space and relish that, right? It's like a seed, like you have to water that seed. So you are the seed, but you're also the one watering, and you're also the water, and you're also the watering can. Okay, we're going a bit.
I'm like, where are you going with this? I just thought what I wanted to share to round up our conversation today, and it's actually kind of like a realization I had from a coaching session recently, which is no matter where you're at in life, no matter who you are, who you think you are, and who you want to be, do take the time to have the courage to take care of yourself. You know, it's not easy for some people, but it's definitely within our ability and our capabilities as human beings. So have the courage to take care of yourself. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.